People speculate that Lee Jae-yong is gonna reinforce some major acquisitions for the Samsung foundry business. How likely do you think the speculation is true?
Well, they're going to have to. Well, one of the big tells from Intel that they're really serious about this business is they're buying Tower Semiconductor. That's a big buy and it's very strategic. I think Samsung will also have to do some acquisitions to catch up. It's a three-horse race now. It's not just TSMC and Samsung. Intel is in there, and I think Intel has a huge advantage over Samsung as far as an IDM foundry because of the new CEO, and they have made some critical acquisitions, and they've also made some very good hires. I've worked in this industry for 40 years, and I've worked with TSMC for close to 30 years, and I know the TSMC people intimately. I spent a lot of time in Taiwan. They have hired several key TSMC people that I have worked with for 15 years for the foundry business. And they've also hired global foundry people and they've hired Samsung people. So Samsung's really, for their foundry business, they're really going to have to make some big changes. They're going to be in a serious disadvantage. So acquisitions, definitely, they should. They have a lot of money. That would be an easy thing for them to do. But they really need to do some hiring as well.
What does Samsung's cross-border acquisition project mean? Would it be restricted by regulations?
Well, if Samsung acquires a big semiconductor company, that's just going to get them a customer. That's not going to get them better foundry service, right? And it'll be a long time before that customer can move all their products over to their foundry business. NXP, for example, they have some very long-standing automotive products that are not going to move over. They're just going to have to do new designs over at Samsung, and maybe Samsung won't have the right process. You never know. So I don't know if that's going to solve their problem. They really need to hire things that will enable their fab business. For example, TSMC has a company called Global Unichip that it's an ASIC company, and I think they're $1 billion or so. They create ASICs and they help customers do projects for their fab. And TSMC has the biggest ASIC community, people doing designs for other companies. They have, I think it's called the value chain or something, but they have, probably a dozen companies that are loyal to their foundry. Samsung could do the same. They could buy a big ASIC business, and that would enable their fabs. But again, I think it would be hiring and buying IP companies and ASIC companies, enablers for their foundry business. I don't think buying a big customer is going to really help them. I actually don't know how likely it is the deal would go through. As you said, there are certain serious challenges to getting acquisitions through the international community. So I don't know. I'm just saying that it's not going to help their foundry business.
So Intel and MediaTek have announced that they will work together on its IFS advanced nodes. Does that mean that IFS is ready for embracing big customers and broadening its market?
Yeah, I think IFS is ready to embrace big customers on their mature nodes. They have a lot of experience. Remember, Intel was the first company to bring FinFETs out, and this 16 nanometer process is actually their 22 nanometer process, the first FinFET process. It's just optimized. The industry really wants multiple sources for the foundry business, and right now they only have Samsung and TSMC for the FinFET leading edge nodes, and that's not good. As you know, Samsung has had problems with yield and many other things. So having a third alternative for these big customers like MediaTek is really important. MediaTek has used multiple foundries in the past. It usually was UMC and TSMC, but UMC doesn't really have a good FinFET solution right now. So I think this is a natural thing. MediaTek and all the other companies that I work with all want a multiple foundry solution. When we first started this business, we used to have 4 or 5 foundries. I remember one design I worked on, we designed it to TSMC, but we manufactured it at UMC, at Chartered, at SMIC. And that wasn't necessarily good for TSMC because they did all the work, but that's how the business worked. And that's why the foundry business became so popular. We lost that alternative foundry sourcing to FinFETs. So I think this is a big deal, and I'm happy to see MediaTek jump in. And I think you'll see more companies moving over to Intel, the mature nodes, for some of their edge processes and edge chips in the future.